Hello and welcome back to DriveDriverDriven. I'm Humble and we're back on the Blunicorn project again today. This time we're doing a little more rework. We need to replace our AC compressor. This is the electric compressor that I've switched to for the rebuild. And the reason is completely my fault. During all the hubbub and the blitz to try and get the car done, somebody, and we won't mention my name here, got the wires a little crossed up and let the magic smoke out of the controller of the old compressor. So, bit of an expensive mistake. You can't just swap the controller on these because they are potted. They're meant for kind of rugged environments. So that leaves with basically having to buy a whole nother compressor. So we have the new compressor in, and luckily for us, we get to test the functionality of our access panel a little bit earlier than we'd hoped. So as you can see down there, I've already opened it up, and our compressor is right here. The system's already evacuated, so the lines themselves are dry. There's a vacuum in the system currently, which is going to be ruined by opening it. But what we have to do is remove those lines, pop 3 bolts out, and we can remove the compressor along with the power leads for it. And then we have to terminate this control wire and do it right this time, so that it doesn't fry. I know the mistake I made previously, which is important. There's actually 4 wires in here. One is a ground, and then one of each of the wires is a speed control. So think of slow, medium, and fast. That's just the speed at which the compressor will run. I've been hurrying and humming over it, and I think what I'm going to do is actually just run the compressor at a medium speed versus low or high, mostly because it is a smaller system. It's a small enclosed space, and I did have a problem with the condenser under the dash icing up previously. So I'm hoping that if by running it at medium speed, it'll be cool enough to keep the interior cold, but not so cold as to ice up the HVAC system under the dash. So that's kind of what I'm thinking. Since a lot of this work we've seen before, I'm just going to set you up with a time lapse so you can watch me get this unit in and out. And I'll pick you guys up again when we get to talk to a little bit more about how I'm changing the electrical system, which I'm going to change up slightly from how it was before, why I'm doing that, and how I think this will work out better in the end. So let's get to it. All right, so as you saw, we have the old bad compressor out, made sure to mark it. Working through that little inspection hole wasn't too bad. I just needed to get the car lifted up a little bit to give me a little more elbow room underneath. But as you can see, it's not too bad having access down from underneath there. You also saw me poking around at some wiring in the interior, which we're going to go over next, and that is to address one of the wiring issues that I had with the prior setup. What worked, well, what I thought would work, and then how we're going to fix it. This is my big brain wiring setup. This is how I thought it would work and how I thought it would work well. And basically, the way I had it set up is we have 12 volts coming off our fan motor, and I tapped into the high, medium, and low speed circuits to directly feed the high, medium, and low speed circuits of our AC compressor. And the ground loop goes through our basically our safety switches, so our pressure switches in the AC system. So if you have too much or too little pressure, it closes off the switch, or rather opens the switch, so it doesn't activate the circuit. And I have that switching the ground side, along with our AC switch on the dash. So the way this would work is you put the fan on medium, it would put the compressor on medium, and then if you've turned on the AC switch, it would send our ground path through and complete, and then the AC compressor would turn on medium, our fan would be on medium, and it would be blowing moderately cold air. The problem with this setup is that if you have the fan motor in high speed or medium speed or low speed, you get a feedback current on the other speed circuits, which would send a little less than 12 volts, but a weird signal to the other speeds on the AC compressor side, and it doesn't like that at all. It doesn't support that kind of configuration, and that's not the reason it died. The reason it died is because I wired the polarity backwards in the plug and failed to notice in all of the Russian things, and that's why the compressor died. Or more specifically, why the controller for it died. So while I wanted this to work and it would have been the smart guy way to do it, it doesn't actually work because of the feedback you get from the other speed circuits. So this is the solution right now, is we have a greatly simplified setup in that I'm just going to take our 12 volt power from the fan power source. So this is before it gets split up into high, medium, and low speeds. It's just the 12 volt before the switch. And I'm going to feed that to our medium speed on the compressor. And then on our ground side, the ground side stays the same. So it doesn't actually give a ground until we turn our AC on, and that everything else works out, like, again, the pressure switch, etc. So the compressor, again, will only turn on if the conditions are right, if you wanted AC, etc. And then this way, the compressor will always turn on no matter what speed, but it will only turn on at the medium speed. And as I mentioned before, I think that's going to be okay for the smaller interior on the Ultima. So what I have to do now is I have to change one of the lines, one of the wiring, I should say, to tap into that 12 volt power source and run that to just the medium side in our harness plug. And then on the compressor itself, I have to wire that up with the Deutsche plug that I'm using in the car, and then everything can go back in and we can hook up the lines and repressurize the system. So let's get to it. All right, the camera died there in the middle. Batteries ran out during the time lapse, but got the new compressor in, got everything wired and set up. Currently, I've had this running for about the last hour, drawing a vacuum. So there's the gauges there. And now the plan is to just let it sit. I'm gonna let it sit like this for about an hour or so before I need to pull the car back into the garage. And if the needles haven't moved, I'm gonna hook it up overnight and make sure it holds the vacuum overnight. And if that's good, then that means we're ready to charge the AC, and once we do that, we can test it and make sure it works. I did test our electrical, so I do have power where I'm supposed to, I have ground where I'm supposed to. So electrically, it should work as I had on the whiteboard. We just gotta wait and see, wait until our vacuum test completes, and fingers crossed, everything's okay. I think that's a good place to leave it for today. It was a bit of a project, not as bad as I thought it was going to be. Thankfully, there's that access panel underneath that I could use to get the compressor in and out. And because I'd done a lot of the legwork ahead of time and all the lines were all done, it was just super easy to get that unit replaced. Hopefully there's a way that I can get just a new controller for the compressor. I haven't asked yet, but we'll see if that's something that's doable, and then I can use that compressor in another project or give it away. So that being said, thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.